joining. Thank you for joining. Please write your name, organization, and which part of the world you're joining us from in the chat. We are looking forward to an interactive session. My name is Mercy Karumba. I'm the Associate Community at the Global Schools Forum. Thank you for joining. Thank you for those who are writing in the chat. Please write your name, organization, and which part of the world you're joining us from. We're looking forward to knowing more about you, even as we start off the spotlight session. So the spotlight session is a monthly space where organizations within the GSF community basically share or showcase their work and what they do. And it's an opportunity for us to collaborate more within the community, and also for people to share their experiences within the thematic area or the area we are speaking about in a particular session. So thank you for joining us. Even as we start off, I'll just give the agenda of the day for the next 1.5 hours. We'll be speaking about GSF and what we do, basically just a brief introduction of who we are for those who are not within the GSF community, just for you to know who the Global Schools Forum is. Then I'll give an opportunity to Sid, basically to speak about how do you create constructive engagement with education actors as a non-state organization. We'll then have an engaging breakout session where we will be basically looking at what are some of the opportunities and assets within that an organization will look at or should work on towards creating constructive engagement with education actors, and how can you come up with a proper plan to do that. And Landry will be leading us in that session. We'll then have a Q&A session for the last 15 minutes, and we wrap up. So we are looking forward to an engaging and a very practical session. So let's gear up for that. And basically, just to introduce the Global Schools Forum, we are a collaborative community of non-state actors, which includes schools and education support organizations in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And we spread across 60 countries in different aspects, working in different areas within the education space. And our vision is that all children can realize their potential through safe access to quality education, regardless of where they are. And we look forward to basically creating a collaborative community of non-state organizations working to improve education at scale for undeserved children. And so far within the community, we have 130 organizations, and like I said, spread across 60 countries with a reach of 24 million, and about 300,000 schools and 800,000 plus teachers reached by the organizations in the GSF community. And basically this spotlight session is one of our engagement opportunities for our community, whereby we create this monthly space where an organization or two will be able to showcase their work, their network, and share their experiences. And together with other organizations joining in the session, we are able to collaborate and learn more about what they do and how we can actually achieve this vision of realizing quality education for all children, regardless of where they're coming from. So thank you so much for joining us in this session today, or in this spotlight today. We're looking forward to an amazing engagement led by Seed Care and Support Foundation. And basically, just to introduce the organization, Seed Care and Support Foundation was founded in 2016 as a locally led nonprofit that supports the affordable non-state education sector to deliver access to quality education for all children through advocacy, evidence, and a learning network. And SEED, just like aligned to the Global Schools Forum, envisions a world where all children, no matter their background, have access to quality education to thrive and to succeed. Currently, SEED works with 715 schools with a reach of 65,000 plus children. And they basically work to ensure that the education ecosystem works for all children, and their core mandate is to redefine the role of the affordable non-state sector in Nigeria. And they see a Nigeria where the right to relevant quality education is fulfilled, and no child is left behind. And today we are happy to have Landry or Landry Waju Oninyetan, who is a consultant, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and advocate with over 2 decades of experience focusing on creating wealth, jobs, income, and economic growth in Africa. She is very passionate and she believes in transformative power of education in achieving the transformative power of education in achieving all other SDGs. She's the founder and executive director of Seed Care and Support Foundation. She's worked closely with international and the local private sector actors across governments, development agencies, academia, membership-based organizations, and non-profits in a wide range of sectors. And we are proud today to celebrate her because she is a 2019 Obama African Leader and has received amazing awards like the 2024 African Women in Development Award and the 2024 Top 10 finalists for the Africa Education Medal. So I'm happy to introduce and welcome Landry to take us through what she's so passionate about, and that is how can the non-state sector basically create that opportunity of collaboration with other education actors, including governments and other state actors. So thank you so much, Landry, and please take over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. I'll just share my screen and we will get to it. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. My name is Olariwaju Oniyitan. You can call me Lanre, and I'm the Executive Director of Seed Care and Support Foundation. And over the next 60 minutes or so, we're going to be speaking together on creating constructive engagement with education actors. I'm going to start this conversation with setting the context. And thank you all for joining from around the world. The context we'll be exploring today is the context of Nigeria. Nigeria is a country with over 200 million people, the most populous Black nation in the world. And the challenge is that half of Nigeria's 200 million plus people are under 19 years old. And many of these children lack access to quality education. On the continent of Africa, we have the highest number of out-of-school children, about 20 million plus. And about 70% of our children are experiencing learning poverty for those that are in school. In addition, we're not closing the gap of teacher quality and quantity as well. However, when we look at our education sector, we know that evidence has shown that both state and non-state sector is required to be able to close the gap that we've identified. However, despite evidence confirming that the affordable non-state sector, such as low-fee private schools, faith-based schools, alternative learning centers, have been playing an indispensable role in expanding access to education and learning outcomes, these schools are not really recognized, and our policies are not very inclusive at the moment. And the truth is that despite the fact that we understand that they play a complementary role to tackling the challenges I've identified, we're still not doing enough. And that is where my organization comes in, Seed Care and Support Foundation. But we didn't start as a full nonprofit. Our story started from 2016, which I'll be taking us through the journey. But for now, what exactly and who are we? What do we do? As Mercy introduced us, we're a locally led nonprofit organization, and we are really focused on supporting the affordable non-state education sector. We like to put the affordable in front because, yes, we know there's a wider non-state sector, but we typically focus on the affordable non-state sector to deliver access to quality education for all children through advocacy, evidence, and a learning network. And our target really is to impact 20,000 of these affordable schools in Nigeria by 2035. But our journey started in 2016, like I mentioned, and we didn't start as a full nonprofit. We started as a project, which was catalyzed by technical assistance from a DFID, now FCDO-funded project called Deepen, where we were supposed to test or create a project that could meet the needs of low-fee private schools in Lagos State. And so the idea then was to just see if we could, serve the sector. And this proposal was given to the consulting firm I founded and I currently still work for. And we just looked at the space and designed a pilot where we worked with 51 schools in 2 local government areas in Lagos State. And this was just to test whether there was something there and whether we could support the sector to grow. And then in 2018, following the success of the pilot, there was another FCDO-funded project called Deepen Challenge Fund, which we were able to showcase the success of the pilot program. And then we were able to scale the work we were doing to 715 schools in the 6 education districts of Lagos, where we reached over 65,000 children by working with the 715 schools. However, post the financing, we had a period of sustenance between 2019 and 2021. And as we all know, the COVID time was around that period. And we had to deal with issues around the school's ability and willingness to pay for support, because as at that time, the funding for the Challenge Fund had been exhausted in 2018, and we had to find a way to really serve this sector. We knew we wanted to be there because we were convinced from the pilot and the scale that we wanted to remain in that space and work there. And so amidst all of that, we experienced the pandemic, the school closures. However, we're able to ride the tide. And in 2022, we decided to do this fully and work in the space by registering as a full nonprofit in 2022. And between 2022 and 2024, we've been putting all our structures together, working and, trying to grow. And based on that, that is where we're at now. And we've expanded our work beyond just working at the school level to working at the systems level, which is part of what we're going to be discussing today. Yeah, I'm going to go into how we work at Seed. And right now, because we started at the school level working directly with the low-fee private schools in Lagos, as we registered as a full nonprofit, we decided to expand our work because we saw the impact of doing much more than working directly with the schools. And so today, Seed works with critical partners, role players, and stakeholders in the education ecosystem to transform lives of children under 3 core pillars. And our first pillar is the Advocacy Hub, which is the focus of today's session, and I'll be sharing a bit about that later. We also have the Evidence Lab, and then we have our Learning Network. And the Learning Network is where we started from, but the Advocacy Hub and part of the Evidence Lab covers our systems level work, while the school level work is at the Learning Network stage and also part of the Evidence Lab. Another part of our model has to do with our community level work, where we provide cross-cutting interventions to support communities using our schools as the hub of intervention support. So we call that the Seed Cares program. However, today we're focusing on the 3 core pillars, and I'll be dwelling in depth on the Advocacy Hub side, where I will then be exploring the whole hands-on deck toolkit by IDP Foundation and Global Schools Forum, which we utilized. So quickly, I'm going to start from our school level work, where we started from and what we do in our learning network. So, like I said, as we started our work supporting the low-fee private schools to enhance the quality of education that they offer. And we do this through our collaborative community, our school transformation program, access to finance, communities of practice, and different curated learning experiences that we provide to our schools. We do this through 5 key areas. The first is our quality assessment, which we use our tool that we developed called the Seed Quality Assessment Tool, which helps to the schools to measure quality and to understand how they need to grow and improve on their quality. And so because we know that defining quality for a lot of our schools was difficult prior to us working in that market, we were able to break down quality into manageable chunks of what we call indicators, where the schools are able to assess themselves and then start to develop a school transformation plan that they can work on year after year. We work on building their capacity, on understanding how they can improve. We also understand that some improvement areas requires financing, and so we provide them access to finance. We're not the funders, but we help them, we link them to financial institutions. We also help financial institutions to design products that suit the market. And we ensure that they get financing, even to grant funding, to pitching. We support our schools to be able to access finance for their school improvement. We also do partner support, where we understand that not all of their needs can be met by our organization. So we partner with different organizations to be able to provide them additional support along the SQUAT indicators where they are weak. And so we partner based on those indicators and how they can be able to support our schools to achieve better outcomes. And also, finally, we do networking and collaboration, peer-to-peer learning, for them to really collaborate. And that's where our communities of practice and learning experiences come up. Moving on, our evidence lab is something that we just started following our registration as a full nonprofit. And what we did was we realized that we could do more if we're able to pilot more innovations that already existed in the market, including the ones we were doing. When we started, we spent a lot of time developing our school transformation program with the Seed Quality Assessment Tool. And we realized that to be able to do more for the sector, we couldn't dwell on designing alone. So under our evidence lab, we design, pilot, monitor, and adapt our innovations, model, concepts, and framework to local context for learning and scale. And we use this evidence to generate and mobilize and persuade strategic actors to pay attention to our sector, and for our sector to also be able to utilize the results from this lab. And so we pilot interventions, like I said, we disseminate knowledge products, we engage in professional development and research. And of course, the all hands on deck toolkit that we are going to explore today is part of some of the work that we decided to pilot under our evidence lab. In addition, we are working with a couple of other organizations to pilot some of their work in Nigeria. A lot of them we met on GSF's platform, My Obama Leadership Network, the Education Finance Network. The networks have been a great opportunity for us to meet like-minded organizations, for us to be able to see how we can take their innovations and pilot in Nigeria. Examples, we're working with NABU, we're working with the Economist Educational Foundation, we're about to start working with Rangit. 1 Million Teachers, we are piloting their innovations in Nigeria, especially around the affordable non-state sector. And so these are the things we do in the evidence lab. And then finally, we're going straight into the last pillar, which is the advocacy hub, which is our focus for today. And the advocacy hub is where we amplify the role of the affordable non-state sector, highlighting the need for a seat at the policy table. So we typically advocate for a better operating environment for them. And we also strengthen associations to be able to effectively serve their members and to advocate for them, because we know that seed cannot do the work alone. And then we go further to strengthen state and national education systems in line with how it would work for our affordable non-state schools and to be able to shape policy and system-wide change. And we're also looking to engage parents and communities to promote system accountability for all. So yes, I had mentioned that from working at the school level when we decided to pilot, we're now working at the full ecosystem level, working, to ensure that everything works for our affordable non-state schools. And in our advocacy hub, we've been working on different initiatives, including our core, which is quality education for all children. We've been involved in non-state education policy for Nigeria, which is happening for the first time in our history. We do not have a current non-state education policy, but it's in the works now. We're working in Lagos State to relook at the school approval guidelines, regulatory frameworks, multiple fees, levies, and tax as it relates to the sector, access to finance, education in emergencies, and of course, out-of-school children. And that brings me to the work that we are doing with the All Hands on Deck. However, for advocacy, before I get into that, for advocacy, I really am very passionate about quality education for all children, no matter the type of school they attend. And if we say quality education and we link it to SDG 4, when we say all, I mean, what we typically advocate for is all children should mean all children in all contexts, no matter the type of school that they attend. And if I want to give if I want to contextualize this a bit, our EMIS data in Nigeria, which is the Education Management Information System, typically what happens is that when the federal government requests for a number of children in school from the states, if you come to a state like Lagos, Lagos only reports the number of schools that are approved and in their register. And the context of Lagos, for instance, is that there are over 20,000 private schools, non-state schools in Lagos. However, in the government register of approved schools, there are less than 6,000 schools. And so when reporting to the federal EMIS data, the Lagos EMIS office only reports data of children in their register. And so it begs the question sometimes, whether the out-of-school children numbers we say we have is actually right, because if the schools that are affordable non-state schools that are not registered are not reported in the EMIS data, that means that the children in the low-fee private schools that we support are not included in the number of children in schools. And so quality education for all children is something that I am very, very, very passionate about. And I believe that what we need to do is to really reimagine our education systems towards enabling all children to thrive and succeed. And like I keep saying, all means all. Every single child in Nigeria is a Nigerian citizen. No matter the type of school they attend, we should be working to make sure that they receive quality education. And so, to the topic for today, which is constructive education, when we decided to set up the advocacy hub, and I was in a strategy session with one of my mentors, the first thing that we discussed was, what is the goal for this advocacy hub? I mean, we wanted to be able to create a mechanism for dialogue and joint problem solving and not confrontation. My background is in industrial relations and personnel management at master's level, where I studied mechanisms like collective bargaining. And I've been an advocacy practitioner for over 15 years, doing advocacy work. And I've been on the side of those asking for something. So I tend to, my experience, when you look at collective bargaining on the side of the workers and advocacy on the side of the associations, I had been used to, coming forward to ask for policies to be made. And so we had to rethink the focus of our advocacy hub. And at that point, I came to appreciate the importance of constructive engagement. Constructive engagement on its own is an approach that helps you to understand and work with policymakers, practitioners, and the public to make specific changes that would improve the outcomes and help you achieve your vision and mission. And so constructive engagement is not confrontational. It means that we're trying to create a win-win situation for everyone based on mutual respect, trust, legitimacy, transparency, and of course, competence in doing what we're doing. And our belief now, as we move on as SEED, is that by using innovation tools like All Hands on Deck, we have the potential to generate greater impact more quickly and at less cost. As a local nonprofit, we do not have the luxury of a lot of funding. And so when we had the opportunity with All Hands on Deck, we immediately embraced it, because I say it's almost like having someone already doing the heavy lifting for you and telling you to pick up a tool and just implement. And so we started with All Hands on Deck Toolkit as part of building up our advocacy hub. And All Hands on Deck is an action toolkit for collaboration in education systems. Of course, it was commissioned by IDP Foundation, and it comprises of a lot of, the toolkit, 4 case studies, presentation guides, and facilitator notes to support better collaboration across national, subnational, and regional education systems. And once we were able to engage with this toolkit, it actually helped us to really define the kind of work we wanted to do in our advocacy hub. And so quickly, before we go into the toolkit, because I want us to experience it firsthand, we have been able to implement the the All Hands on Deck toolkit, and it started for us in 2023 when we were contacted that Lagos was going to be one of the case study for the toolkit, and we were going to support in doing that. Hence, that gave us access to the toolkit even before it was published. Why did we decide to use the toolkit? The timing in 2023, we were going through Nigerian elections. And at that point, there was a new commissioner for basic and secondary education in Lagos State. And that really opened up an opportunity for us to really pilot the toolkit and start to use it within our advocacy hub, because we really, really needed to engage with the new commissioner, especially as once a new commissioner comes in, usually the trend is that, the affordable non-state sector becomes interesting for them. And we try to act first so that they get to understand the sector, the work that has been done, and we start to engage. And so the way the toolkit is designed, you can run it as a workshop. So we decided to have our physical workshop in October 2023. And we were able to pull 4 low-fee private school associations in the state to attend the workshop and help in designing and co-creating our advocacy hub work. And following the implementation of the All Hands on Deck toolkit, we've been able to put these 4 associations, they came together to form the coalition of low-fee private school associations in Lagos, and they nominated SEED to be the secretariat of the coalition. We've been able to we developed a communique that was sent to the Honorable Commissioner to be able to engage and start to let them understand the situation of the affordable non-state sector in Lagos. We paid the courtesy visit to the Commissioner. We've developed op-eds with the All Hands on Deck focus. And recently, we were invited by the Federal Ministry of Education to review the draft national policy on non-state schools in Nigeria. And all of this was, I can tell you, is attributed to the work we put in using the All Hands on Deck toolkit. And so enough about talking about how we've used it. I want to kind of use our example to showcase some of the things we got from the toolkit, and then we would all go to work into our breakout rooms to be able to experience part of the toolkit and really come up with some of the results we also came up with while we role play in the different groups we'll be put in. So the All Hands on Deck has a framework for action, and that framework really within the workshop, when you go through it, there are different worksheets and outputs that come up from each part of the framework that really helps you to think through how you want to advocate and continue to engage with education stakeholders. And so the starting point with the toolkit is with the workshop and the toolkit is for you to identify the challenge you're trying to overcome and the future that you're working towards. So within the toolkit, you have this worksheet that really helps you to think through this. And we utilize this particular worksheet. And this is what our own associations came up with when we had this workshop and session at SEED. And so each association was able to come up with the challenges, with the goals, and jointly we reimagined the future of what we see in terms of advocacy for low-fee private schools in Lagos. And for us at the time, we were able to identify that or imagine a future where the Lagos State Ministry of Education will engage, include, and rely on the expertise of low-cost private school actors in policy making and education delivery to expand equitable access to quality education. Now, this was something SEED facilitated. So what we did was we didn't come up with any of these. We actually brought in the actors, which are the low-fee private school associations, and facilitated the workshop that enabled them to think through this and come up with the future that they imagine. And it was after coming up with this and doing all of the exercises, they realized that they needed someone or an organization like SEED to support them. And that was how we were nominated to be the secretariat for their coalition. And we also adopted their work as part of our Advocacy Hub initiative. And then the second part of the tool, which is the enablers of change, which is what we're going to work on in our breakout rooms. But before we go into the breakout rooms, I want to also give examples of how we came up with our enablers of change and, explain the context we had to be able to come up with the outputs from this section. And so here, for the enablers of change, we want to know how does who you are as an organization or as an association or as a funder or as a development organization, how does who you are and where you work affect what you do? And this is critical for you to do to be able to understand where you are. And how does the toolkit encourage us to do this? It says you map your characteristics and assets. So what characteristics and assets do you have? Are you committed to doing this? Are you aligned? Do you have the technical capability? Is your leadership strong enough to be able to achieve this? And this exercise really helps you to look at who you are, look inward. It's almost like an internal diagnostics and saying, what do I have? What are my assets? What can I bring to the table when I'm doing this advocacy? And so it's important for you to be able to do this exercise to ensure that you have the context of your of where you are as an organization. And so for us, when we did this, remember I mentioned we did this with 4 low-fee private school associations. And so we jointly, each association did this diagnostics within the workshop. And we then brought together everything as they came as a coalition. We then evaluated our characteristics and assets as a coalition. And for commitment, for instance, the associations were willing to make long-term commitments towards the change they desire, the future they wish they had. And then the alignment, what they needed to align on was clearly defined. We knew we needed a consistent messaging for low-cost private schools in Lagos State, because Lagos State, one of the things about the non-state sector in Lagos State is that we have a lot of associations. So within the ministry, for instance, there are 21 non-state associations registered with the ministry. Now, when government comes out to speak, they always tell us that they are confused. They don't understand what the sector needs because every single association is coming from the other, and they are speaking from different, hymn books. So Lagos State then put all of them in they have a framework called COPSAIL. COPSAIL is the Conference of Private Schools in Lagos. However, it's a mix of non-state schools, the high cost, the middle cost, and low cost schools. So this coalition wanted to be able to bring out their voice as a coalition of low-fee private schools to further ally the needs, challenges of the low-fee private schools. And so we were aligned on the kind of consistency in terms of the messaging we wanted to have. And then the associations were also willing to align with government priorities and policies as long as they were engaged in the formulation process. So we ensured alignment. Then for technical capability, when we did our assessment, which is a tool within the toolkit as well, unfortunately, we're not looking at that today. That's why you should explore the toolkit. But we did assessment of our technical capability, and we realized that there were areas in that some associations really required strengthening. So, of course, the assessment helped us to realize that there were gaps in terms of technical capability. And then the leadership side as well, they had skillful leadership, even though there were also areas of improvement, but they had quite good leadership to drive and shape the proposed agenda. So that's mapping characteristics and assets, which is worksheet 2A within the toolkit. Another thing within this section is mapping the opportunities. So it's enough to map internally, you also need to map externally. And so what are the opportunities in the context to support your work? And that was part of what we did in the assessment. We looked at the opportunities. So something like timing, because advocacy takes time, doing that work requires patience. You need to wait for change. You need to build trust. You need to look at the time. Timing is just, you can't overemphasize the need for timing. So you need to evaluate the timing. You also need to look at the policy window. There's sometimes that it's great to put out something you want to do. There are other times that is not so great. So for those of us that we are used to our election cycles, for instance, on the continent, you know that you can't start talking about policy change when it's time for a new government to come in. You need to know the policy window and when to start and pause on your advocacy work, evaluate the political landscape. You also need to look at the political and social context. You need to understand the public sector's view on the issue. Quite a lot of people, when you talk about affordable non-state sector, they just flip. They just don't want to hear about it. So you need to understand and really do your stakeholder mapping and know where the position is by those that you're trying to interact with. You also need to evaluate the entire ecosystem. Who else is working around you? Who can be your ally? Who can be your ambassador? Who can work with you? And you need to know who to align with that can complement your skills, and you can all collaborate for change. And that's what this tool allows you to evaluate. And yes, we also did this during our workshop, and I just decided to share what the associations also came up with. So in terms of timing, at the time we did our own using the toolkit, the associations recognized the importance of timing for their work. And at that time, like I mentioned, we were faced with a change in new government, and a new commissioner of education for basic and secondary education was in place, who was not part of the work we had been doing in 2016. So we knew it was a crucial time. We needed to act before the commissioner settled on his seat. And that's why we decided to take on the toolkit to come up with a communique and engage immediately. We also looked at the policy window and said, with the current shift in the political landscape, there was a unique opportunity for change. If we're able to really convince the new commissioner to, support our work, then we would be able to make the operating environment for the low-fee private schools better. And so it was a great policy window for us to be able to act. And then within the political and social context, we knew that Nigeria, we were tired of hearing that we had the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. With the rising number, we knew that some of those children are in these low-fee private schools. And if we speak up, we know that we can convince government to be able to ensure that they engage with us and speak with us. And so the result of the work we've done is one of the reasons we've been called to be able to speak up during the development of the national policy on non-state education in Nigeria, because the rising out of school children numbers became a concern. There was the need to align the public's view to the issue that we had. And so for us, the context worked, and we saw that it was the right time for us to act. And so with the ecosystem, we also knew that we needed other core actors to complement our work. We didn't have the might of for instance, in Nigeria, we have the organized private sector that engages with government when it comes to private sector organizations in Nigeria. The likes of the organized private sector is made up of big institutions like the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Employers Consultative Association, the Chambers of Commerce, that kind of might. We didn't have that, but we knew that we needed to start to build a coalition and start to collaborate for change. And so that was the reason we said, you know what, you can't keep working in silos as associations. We need to form this coalition and start to engage other ecosystem players to advocate for a better environment. And so just before we go into the breakout session, I also wanted to highlight that within the toolkit, there are 4 case studies from great organizations like Central Square Foundation, and even a state like Lagos State. There are the case studies of things that had happened over the years. And for each tool, they also, the toolkit references the parts of those case studies that you can learn from, and it can help you to really develop what you need for your own organization. So yes, we are at the point where we want to role play in 2 groups and really engage with the worksheet 2A and 2B of the All Hands on Deck toolkit. And this is how we're going to go about doing it. We're going to have 2 groups, and you're going to role play as a non-state school association, where you would map your characteristics and assets using worksheet 2A. We're going to provide you like the PowerPoint that has the worksheet in it. So don't worry, you have it in your groups. And then group 2, you will be working with worksheet 2B, which is mapping opportunities. We would have 10 minutes within our breakout sessions, and then we would come back and each group would have 5 minutes to share. I would also roam in the 2 groups in case you have questions. I will be available to provide some answers. And so, yes, Mercy, I'm going to stop sharing so that people can go into their groups.
Thank you so much, Landry. And I think we can just give a minute if there's anyone who has a question before we go into the breakout rooms, a question regarding the activity. If not, we can open up. All right, thank you so much, everyone. I have put in the activity sheet on the chat. Please find it there. I'll be opening the breakout rooms right away.
Oh, I was enjoying that. I know the time was very short. Now you understand how the facilitation takes, I mean, the whole workshop took a whole day. So I know that within this short period, we really could not fully work on the worksheets, but at least we were able to engage and discuss a bit and really explore the areas. As we welcome everyone back to the main room, I don't know if we have those that will be presenting for our groups, whatever what we were able to discuss. I know the time was not enough. It's never enough. But yeah, group 1 and group 2. Do we have that would like to share?
Landry, unfortunately for group 1, they were not able to discuss, so I think they can just listen in to what group 2 presents and ask questions. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Who will speak for group 2? Anyone who would like to share?
I'll go with whatever little we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Forgive me because I'm not going to remember the names of all the associations. But Nana was talking about what's happening in Ghana right now, and therefore what the Association of Private Schools, what are the opportunities and timings that they have. So from a timing perspective, because we're going by the worksheet, she was talking about how the elections are coming up in December. And what that means is that all the major national associations are actually trying to find a way to have their agenda and interests become something that the political parties also represent, which means getting to communicate with them, talk to them in rallies, things like that. The opportunity obviously is when you do this, policy can actually reflect and therefore help with the agenda that you have. So for the private schools, for example, because for the association, because you said it's both low cost and mid sort of tier private schools, right? So it's not just that one kind of school. So they have quite a wide range, and because it's a national association, it's a wide range of interests. So the timing and the policy opportunity are both deeply connected with each other. Um, that is what we managed to speak about. This is also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Landry, it starts seeding into the political and social context part of the opportunities because it's all connected with that. So we didn't get to fully talk about that social context and about what ecosystems support this.
That's good. Yeah, so I would just give Nana a minute or two to kind of share with us if there was any ecosystem building around what the Ghana National Association did or are doing as they engage with government. So are they going this alone, or they've been building different support from different parts of, maybe cross-sectoral support or other forms of support to make their voice louder or to amplify their voice? You're muted, Nana. Are you speaking?
Nana looks like she might be frozen.
Oh, she's frozen. Okay. So, I mean, do you want to share maybe the India's experience around this? I mean, for the context of India, is there, what do you think would happen in your country?
So we have kind of an opposite thing when it comes to elections, where so the model code of conduct kicks in, and that essentially means that no government body can enact new policy or put anything new into place, because it's looked at as trying to sway voters to do something, or to basically vote one party or the other. So what that means is when an election is coming out, and we just got done with ours in the summer, our national election. But what that means is just before and just after, nothing new happens. And in the context of the state that I'm in, which is called Maharashtra, we have, yes, the national elections just finished. Now our sort of state assembly elections are going to happen. And in the capital city of the state, which is where I stay, which is called Mumbai, our municipal corporation elections are also going to kick in. So we are actually in this middle of our context is election, election, election. And this has created a very difficult, an unstable situation where we have very small windows, and this comes to, I think, timing. We have small windows of opportunity where we talk to people and stakeholders and governments, and then everyone stops answering calls and having meetings, and then again you have a small window. So from a social context, what that has meant is we've sort of had to rapidly change how we approach our on-ground work. So we're not just working with governments, we're working with SEED, for example. We are trying to find other education organizations that could support work for private schools, low-cost private schools, that kind of a thing. So the ecosystems that we've been taking advantage of is in fact this network of education supporters, I would say. So all of We Are EdTech, for example, other organizations that are maybe NGOs. So we've started building that and taking advantage of those ecosystems because each NGO has their own little support network. So then trying to talk to every single, one of these people. And then side by side, what we're doing is outside of our state, we're also talking to other state, not governments, but important people in those governments to try and prepare for how we could maybe potentially work with them in the future. Because what we understood with this, for example, is if say there's an election in another state, we want to still have those existing relationships. So that's kind of how, we had to, so it's in fact the complete opposite of what Nana was saying, because we can't take opportunity from the fact that the elections are coming. We can only learn from the fact that, okay, it's coming. So what do we do outside of that?
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And it's great to know that what works somewhere might be the opposite in another place. And I mean, that's a good learning opportunity. Mercy, do we still have time to take Nana, or we need to go into the Q&A?
Yes, we have time. We can pick one or two questions.
All right. Odunayo has a hand up. Can you wanted to share?
It's a question, actually. So maybe I wait for the
All right.
Q&A.
So Nana, I had put you on the spot to say the Ghana National Association of Private Schools form a coalition or collaborate with anyone in amplifying their voice?
Yes, actually. So there's the IDP Foundation, which is like a strong supporter of the non-state sector, is working with the Ghana National Association of Private Schools and other non-state sector actors, including Think Education and the Ghana National Council of Private Schools and other funders, to set up the Non-State Education Coalition. And so this is basically like a coalition of, organizations and associations, civil society organizations, etc., funders included, who are advocating for, better systems for the non-state sector, better inclusion in the policies in education, especially those that affect the affordable non-state sector. So yes, definitely, they are working with like the broader stakeholder, I'd say, broader stakeholders to amplify their voice, especially when it comes to advocacy. I think that they've also been quite strategic in working closely also with multilateral organizations. So they are currently working on a USAID project. They're one of the, I guess, the sub-grantees on that USAID project. And one component of it is like a community of practice. And so that also puts them in that position to amplify their voices, but also now with supports from multilateral organizations as well. So that's yeah, definitely a step that they're taking.
Thanks for sharing. I mean, GSF, you have another case study here that you can add to the toolkit. The Ghana case is something that should be documented. Thanks for sharing, Nana. Odunayo, do you have your questions ready?
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing this. And it's such a pleasure getting to know what you're doing right here in Nigeria and just seeing all the amazing work that I didn't know about before now. So my question is really around how, because I work with Bramble Network. It's a nonprofit as well that works to transform education for young people, especially in rural marginalized communities. So on one hand, we are running tuition-free learning centers. Some are alternative learning centers, some are full schools, but they are tuition-free. Why we also, over the course of the years, we've had low-cost private schools requesting us to come and train and all of those things. So, so recently we've been thinking about, just having, we've been trying to see what's especially in Oyo State, we have offices in Oyo State. We also work in Para. So we've been thinking around what are the community of practice that may exist already for, say, tuition-free learning centers or low-cost private schools. What are they doing exactly? And I mean, as we know, there's no particular place you can go to find data on this kind of things in Nigeria. So it's been a lot of asking people here and there and all of that. So that's sort of the reason I'm really, really happy that I participated in this. So my question is really, how does SEED just work with associations of low-cost private schools? Say, for example, in states or in areas where they don't have an association, how do you also support them to maybe start something like a community of practice, and all of that? Because we already have a number of low-cost private schools that we have worked with, and they don't belong to any association. They're just like doing, people doing their stuffs on their own, in different places. And there's no regulatory body because many of them are not registered with the government. So, yeah.
Okay, so like I spoke on our history, we started in Lagos and we started working directly with the schools. So we started with school level interventions, working directly with the schools before we moved into systems work, working with the associations and the wider ecosystem. As part of our scale-up plan, we are scaling to Southwest Nigeria. So we're going to be in 6 states over the course of 2024, 3 years. And we're looking to scale into the rest of the Southwest. So we would, we might not cover Kwara, but we would cover Oyo State. And we're going to be replicating and adapting the work we've done in Lagos. We're working with with the Dawn Commission. I'm sure you're familiar with Dawn Commission, which works in the Southwest, and support from a proposed project around with FCDO plane program in Nigeria. So that particular project, we're hoping that we can use to scale to the Southwest. And so, yeah, we can engage after this conversation to discuss more about how we are planning to work in Nigeria and scale to the Southwest. But yes, you are right. A lot of the low-fee private schools are not part of an association. And that's why part of our strategy, which I'll be sharing my screen again to show with the toolkit, we were able to kind of, identify that we need to strengthen the association. So like all the associations in Lagos are actually in all of the other states, but they're not active. We were able to identify system strengthening for the associations to serve, because SEED cannot go everywhere. We're just one non-profit here. So strengthening the associations to be active in the states so that the low-fee private schools can, be a member and be able to benefit from the work they do is really critical for our growth and for the sector. And so that's what we are looking to do. And if you can see my screen, I am sharing, again, the full action framework on the All Hands on Deck toolkit. We were able to engage with the enablers of change, which is the opportunities and the characteristics and assets. But it's a wider tool. And like I said, when we did the workshop, it took us the whole day. And there are other things we can explore within the toolkit, which is activities to build engagement, including trust building, issues framing, how to build a coalition, modeling and testing solutions. It was really an amazing time engaging with this part of the toolkit, and of course, coming up with the final outcomes and impact. And as an example, this is what we came up with as our first toolkit output as a pathway for change for the work that we're doing. And so we were able to identify the problem, streamline the problem to 5 key problems. And then we identified the activities we would do for the next three years. We will come back to it annually. What we wanted to really hammer on was evidence generation. There are quite a lot of there's no evidence. Like you said, you look for things, you don't find it. So we want to put out a lot of evidence in the space so that people understand the issues we're facing, we're building trust, and we're modeling and testing solutions, which is what led to even our evidence lab pillar, where we want to quickly churn out, solutions and pilots that shows that things work for this sector, and we're able to use that to build trust. And then the second core activity for us was coalition building, which is we need to speak as one voice when we're speaking to government and take our issues to government. So we started with 4 low-fee private school associations in the coalition. Over the next 3 years, we want to expand that coalition, because in the next 3 years, the new election is coming in Nigeria. So we want to really strengthen the coalition. We want to bring other associations. We want to ensure that all other states are involved. We want to further define the coalition's common goals, create a coalition platform, create committees for action, and start to align with other ecosystem actors. And so this is our 2 focus areas for the next 3 years before the next election happens, so that we can then amplify the voice of the low-fee private school sector. And our outcome that we're expecting is for evidence and data for shared understanding, trust, and common goals. We wanted to have had tested policy solutions and also better engagement and collaboration before the next election. And we hope that the overall impact is the public and private sector is seen as one system supported by government oversight, partnerships, and delivering, goals for equity and learning, and ensuring that all children get access to quality education. So this is how we use the toolkit to map out this particular pathway for change. It might look simple, but you need to go through the entire process and all of the worksheets, but it's an exciting process. It really helps you to streamline what you want to achieve as an organization. And I see Nana's hand up. I know she has a question, but I'll quickly wrap up. and say that if anyone on the call needs help with using the toolkit, we're happy to jump on a call to have a conversation and to be able to support your using the toolkit, because for us, it was an amazing time. And we're using the output from the toolkit to drive our advocacy hub work. So I'll say thank you, and we'll open up the floor again for any questions. Nana?
Yes, thank you, Landra. Thank you so much. This is very useful and helpful. Two questions actually I have. The first question is who's responsible for driving the pathway of change? Is it the secretariat? You mentioned seat is the secretariat. So is it the secretariat, or is there, some other way that they are driving those actions, and moving them forward? So that's my first question. Second question is, I know that there's a toolkit, and this is probably to also the wider GSF team. There's obviously this toolkit, which is great, but are there also maybe more, and this is also like a really great session to be introduced to it. Are there, following this, is there or is there opportunity to have like a more detailed engagement around how to, actually use them in different contexts?
Okay, so I'll take your question, the first one. So because when we finished the workshop, and this is what happened in reality, when we finished the workshop, it dawned on the associations that they lacked the technical capacity to drive what we had designed. And so at that point, they nominated C to be the secretariat to support in driving this pathway for change, even though they were going to take responsibility for a lot of the work. So for instance, when we decide on certain things to do, we form committees made up of their members. So we don't, even though we're driving, we don't do the work. They get to do the work, and we are building their capacity in a way that they can eventually take this over, because this is just Lagos State. We have 36 states in Nigeria. If we're going to scale, we can't sit in Lagos, but we want to use Lagos as a pilot and learning for all other states. And so if we're able to achieve this with Lagos, we would then hand over to them, let them take ownership, and then we scale. However, for now, what is happening because of the lack of full technical capacity, SEED is still driving, but in driving it, we build committees made up of the association executives and their members to drive those committees. So we have committees on school approval, committees on multiple taxation, committees on, and they're all working to do that, even though we provide technical
work and network. And I think you've seen from this session just how much engagement it has brought out, and how much it shows that there are areas of synergy within the community and with even other organizations, basically just joining in for some of these spotlight sessions, even if they're not part of the community. So please let me know if you'd like to host a spotlight, or you'd like to be part of the GSF community. I've taken that request from Chido. I'll be responding to you. And thank you so much